Let me tell you of a horrible story. A tale of science, of ambition, of man versus nature. I first learned of this tragic series of events in a letter from my brother Robert, an explorer whose profound passion for the unknown has often led him far from home. In these letters, he writes, "Dearest sister, you will rejoice to hear that no disaster thus far
has accompanied my voyage, which you have regarded with such evil foreboding. I cannot say the same for others, however. In my travels I met a scientist by the name of Victor Frankenstein. Not met, but rather found in the most unpleasant of situations in the frigid Arctic waters. Emaciated, partially frozen, and near death, it took convincing to bring him from the icy land to the safety of our ship. He said to me, 'You seek for knowledge and wisdom, as I once did, and I ardently hope that the gratification of your wishes may not be the serpent to sting you, as mine have been.' These words have lain heavily with me in the days passing since he recounted to me his story."
It was early in my exposure to serious academia that I first realized my interest and potential in alchemy and the natural sciences. I was young, eager, just beginning to understand the extent of the role of a scientist, using every waking moment to obtain knowledge from expressly prohibited sources. The more information I encountered, the more I gravitated towards the source of all universal truth, the controversial and eternal conflict between man and the omnipotent power of God and nature. As I increased the vigor of my studies, my human ambition began to grow, my curiosity developing an unparalleled obsessive desire to defy the accepted laws of life and death, of the known and the unknown. It was not long before my ambition began to consume even the most fundamental aspects of my existence. I became obsessed with the idea of infusing life into an otherwise lifeless matter, a train of thought previously thought absurd and impossible. Yet I worked incessantly to disprove these doubts, to rewrite the laws of nature through the use of new scientific knowledge I had so eagerly obtained. At this juncture of my life, I had been completely transformed by the prospect of reversing death, and I began to collect body parts of recently deceased persons, creating the conduit through which I would finally achieve my goal. Oddly sickened by the horror of the unnatural creation I came to call the monster, my guilt and fear brought me back to the comfort of my home in Geneva. A series of tragic events preceded this sudden move: the death of my younger brother William, at what I rightfully assumed to be the hands of my monstrous creation, and the subsequent execution of a village girl, Justine, wrongly convicted of the murder of dear Will. I felt the blood of the unnecessarily dead wash over my hands. I felt a compelling urgency to find the monster I had abandoned, misdirecting my guilt to desire revenge for the murders he committed. On a day during my stay in Geneva, I could feel his proximity so vividly that I did not doubt the reality of his presence. Spotting surreptitious movement, I immediately gave chase in both terror and desperation to find him. Conveniently and frighteningly, the murderous monster found me first. He confronted me, angrily blaming me for his miserable existence. Infuriated by the distress he had caused me through his crimes, I grew angry as well, my emotions overwhelming my sensibility, as I felt Brother William's ghost judging my actions. My creature demanded a mate, a counterpart on his journey through life, a companion to love and to hold, such as I had found in my betrothed Elizabeth. Terrified by his threatening appearance and guilted by my desertion, I reluctantly agreed to do as he asked. And thus I began work on my second creation. I had become massively unstable at the thought of creating an equally horrifying monster, defying the power of nature yet again, and my frustration and resentment manifested itself in my work. My misery became nearly too much for me to contain. The parallel of my living creation with the still inanimate body on my work table struck such fear, such guilt, such horror in my very core, that I felt all the strength of God and nature pushing down upon me. It was impossible to bring myself to create life yet again. In a fit of passion, I destroyed my current project, mutilating the body as to never allow for its full reanimation. Despite these haunting circumstances, I found solace in marrying my long-beloved Elizabeth, who seemed to represent the last gleaming light of hope that remained in my life and was not dimmed by the actions of the horrible monster that I had created. After destroying the companion I had begun for the monster, I was inundated with immense waves of fear, as if a disaster were looming in the near future. My monster exacted revenge in the worst of ways, as he extinguished the last light of my life, my dear Elizabeth.
Despite our best efforts to nurse him back to health, Victor spiraled towards his imminent death. Victor and his creation, at one point, met again. I learned that on the last few moments of Victor's life, the monster and he connected, finding not peace, but at least acceptance of their fate. Thus, at the hand of his own ambition, Victor Frankenstein met his demise. And now, I pray thee, sister, share with others the fate conveyed by his tales, for a man's conflict with nature will undoubtedly burden generations to come. With much love and sincerity, your dear brother,
Robert. Thus I have heeded the words of my kind brother. This is not my story. I am not witness to the events I have retold to you, but the reality remains. The conflict presented by scientific advances will rival the acts of God and nature for the rest of time. There is no turning back.